6 years into my marriage with Simon Thorne, his touches grew increasingly infrequent. In the last year, we were practically platonic roommates sharing a bed, until I decided to tear down the facade and confront him directly. He finally let out a sigh of relief and said, "Yes, I'll handle it. She's still so young. I can't keep stringing her along." I froze on the spot, my heart chilling completely in that instant. 8 years of acquaintance, 6 years of marriage. At that moment, he wasn't afraid I'd discovered his infidelity. He was worried about ruining the fair maiden's youth. Some things, even if I wanted to deceive myself, I couldn't, because his performance was simply too inept. On Simon Thorne's 30th birthday, he was away on a business trip. To surprise him, I appeared at his hotel room door. The moment he opened the door, his face showed a fleeting bewilderment, but no surprise at my sudden arrival. I was carrying a pile of things, but he didn't offer to take them. He just kept rubbing the back of his head, repeating, "I thought it was Mr. Evans coming to deliver documents." Mr. Evans was his assistant. I said nothing, just looked at the items in the room. A large bouquet of baby's breath sat on the living room table. On the table was also a newly unboxed smart viewing headset. The bag I was carrying also contained one of those. Simon loved playing games and collecting tech gadgets. It seemed the person who gave him the gift and I had the same idea. Before I could ask, he hastily explained, "My colleagues and friends from the company got it together. I need to use the restroom first." He scrambled into the restroom. I sat on the sofa. This summer was particularly muggy. Before long, a heavy rain poured outside. I looked at the ice cream cake in the bag, his favorite, which I had queued up to buy earlier. The ice packs were practically melted. The cake didn't seem like it would last much longer either. He still hadn't emerged from the restroom. Just as my patience was wearing thin, he finally came out. He looked at me with a relieved expression and said, "I told you I'd celebrate with you and Arya back home. Why did you still rush all the way here? You must be tired." I said nothing, just looked at him. He continued to make small talk, taking out the items from the bag one by one. "Eleanor, how did you shell so many pine nuts for me? Aren't your hands tired? My goodness, this chocolate ice cream cake is so hard to get. How long did you queue? This headset, I actually prefer." I didn't let him continue. I cut him off. "Did you delete everything?" "That took a long time." I gripped the sofa cover tightly, so hard that my fingernails ached. As the words left my mouth, I felt my breathing seize up. But compared to my emotional turmoil, he casually explained, "Eleanor, what are you talking about? Since when have you been so suspicious? Didn't I just explain? Those were from colleagues and friends." I stared at him coldly. The whole scene felt utterly absurd. He was so calm and composed, gathering words to placate me. There was hardly any emotional fluctuation. I almost wished he'd been flustered, or even scared. That way, I wouldn't have felt so ridiculous. It was as if, from beginning to end, all these years of our relationship had been a monologue. I sat upright on the sofa, trying desperately to suppress my surging emotions, quietly listening to him make things up, until he could spin no more tales. He finally gave in, like talking to a confidant. He began to tell me about the girl. He said she was so foolish. He said how much she resembled a younger me. He talked about her charming ways, how much she loved him. When he mentioned her mischievous habit of catching mosquitoes and dissecting them, a subtle smile touched his face. I didn't interrupt him. Only my chest ached terribly. Every detail he recalled was like a myriad of wounds strangling my heart. For a moment, I felt like I was losing my breath. Finally, he concluded, "Eleanor, I'm sorry, but we truly haven't done anything inappropriate. I'll handle this. And she's still so young. I can't keep delaying her life." At that one sentence, I felt a huge roaring sound in my ears. 8 years of knowing each other. 6 years of marriage. Now, he wasn't afraid I'd discovered his emotional infidelity. He was afraid of ruining the fair maiden's youth. The glass of water he'd offered me, still untouched, I picked up and splashed onto his face. He wiped the water from his face, eloquently stating, "Eleanor, I understand how you feel. I didn't want this to happen either." I couldn't listen anymore. I grabbed my bag and stood up to leave. Just as I opened the door, I turned back, facing his stunned expression. I slapped him hard, several times. By the time I left, The rain had stopped. The weather was muggy, like a steam room. My shirt dress was completely stuck to my skin. I felt like I'd been pulled from water. There were no suitable flights, so I chose the nearest high-speed train. Suddenly catching my reflection in the glass, I realized my face was covered in tears. How truly pathetic and laughable. On his birthday, my husband was confiding in me about how he fell in love with another woman. Was he so confident he had me completely? The more I thought about it, the more I struggled to control my emotions. A few strangers were already peeking over, unable to bear such sudden concern. I slumped onto the nearby table. I didn't want to look so disheveled in public, but the harder I tried to hold back my tears, the more they flowed. When I got off the train, there were 2 small packets of tissues on the table where I had been resting. A fellow passenger had placed them there. The person who once promised to care for and cherish me was now the one hurting me most, failing to even offer the kindness of a stranger. I put the tissues in my bag and put on a large pair of sunglasses. My eyes were swollen beyond recognition. I'd have to pretend when I got home. I didn't want my daughter to see me like this. See, after marriage and children, even when you're hurting, you have to hold it in. Make time and space. I called my best friend, Lisa, to come over and take Arya for a day or 2. After handling everything, I took a shower and then sat in my room until late into the night. I had no more tears left to cry. Why did I have to be the only one hurting? How could Simon Thorne be so nonchalant, so unaffected? Many images flashed through my mind. How my dignity in this marriage had been slowly eroded. His actions the moment he opened the door, and the expression on his face as he described how he fell for her. For a moment, I felt drained of strength, as if all my perseverance had lost its meaning in an instant. I was probably the most foolish woman, only realizing my husband, who shared my bed, had been cheating for so long. A huge urge for discovery enveloped me. I wanted to know everything about him and her. I got up and found Simon Thorne's old iPhone in the room's closet. He was an Apple enthusiast. He always bought the latest model, so he often didn't have time to log out of his old accounts. And then I saw the sync chat logs. She was Simon Thorne's direct junior from university, named Lily Dawson. Simon Thorne had her WeChat contact saved as Mousy due to the similar sound, and her zodiac sign was also a mouse. They began contacting each other frequently 3 years ago. At that time, Lily Dawson was just graduating, anxious daily about her thesis and internship. And it just so happened that Simon Thorne was back on campus, sharing his experiences as an outstanding graduate. Through their interactions, they became acquainted and familiar. I numbly scrolled through the chat logs. A Saturday conversation, a thank you message, particularly caught my attention. Senior Simon, thank you so much. Without you, I definitely wouldn't have finished this thesis today. I didn't even get to treat you to a meal, so you must let me treat you next time. Okay. The timestamp took me back to that particular noon, and my interactions with Simon Thorne. At that time, I was 6 or 7 months pregnant with Arya. Our new house had just been renovated, and we needed to buy furniture. Simon Thorne said he was busy with work, so I handled most of it. From renovation to furniture shopping, I was mostly busy by myself. During that period, I walked at least 10,000 steps a day. That Saturday, he rushed out early in the morning. I waited in the new house for the installation workers to set up the furniture. To save on cleaning fees, I cleaned the house myself. Heavily pregnant, Simon Thorne finally rushed back in the afternoon. He calmly told me there was an urgent company matter. Then he lay wearily on the nearby sofa. Coincidentally, there was a power outage that day. I grabbed a pamphlet fan nearby and fanned him. He half opened his eyes, still groggy from sleep, then kissed my belly and said, "Eleanor, why are you so good to me?" Then he took the fan from my hand and fanned me. At the time, I thought it was a sweet scene of our family of 3. Little did I know, there was such a story behind it. When he kissed the child in my belly, was he envisioning a sweet future for our family of 3? Or was he worried about whether his little Mousy could graduate smoothly? I could barely continue reading the messages, because each message, corresponding to my timeline, felt absurd and laughable. While I was immersed in the happiness of our family of 3, my husband's heart had already strayed. In the chat logs, she reminded him to eat breakfast on time. He urged her to study hard for certifications. intern well, and become an outstanding graduate. They would invite each other out for meals, movies, and so on. For various reasons, they seemed to have endless topics to talk about every day. Simon Thorne cared much more about her than about our family. He helped her with internal job referrals, meticulously revising her resume. Even after she started working, he helped her negotiate with clients and secure large deals. There were many things to celebrate and be happy about between them. Promotions, closing deals, buying tickets to favorite concerts, all shared and celebrated together. Lily Dawson's WeChat signature was, "People are always fixated on what they recognize at first sight." In their last WeChat message, Simon Thorne was still encouraging her to be brave, go out, and find her own happiness. Lily Dawson just replied, "What I want most has always been impossible. Let it be. It's fine." When Simon Thorne returned, I had already instructed my lawyer to draft the divorce agreement. He merely glanced at it, not taking it. Then he erupted in fury. "Eleanor Sterling, is this really necessary? She and I never crossed any line. After all these years of our relationship, you're going to act like this?" The suppressed emotions in my chest could no longer be contained. I screamed at him, breaking down. "Yes, after all these years of our relationship, you're going to treat me like a fool. I'm asking you, are you serious? Yes. You didn't sleep together, so you're oh so noble. I've praised you. Are you satisfied? Eleanor, you're emotionally unstable right now. I'm not going to argue with you. This is my fault, but I truly haven't done anything to betray you from beginning to end. When you calm down, we can talk properly." He tried to comfort me, his hand reaching for my shoulder, but I recoiled in disgust. Huh. In my extreme anger, I actually started laughing. He was so perfectly consistent in his logic, in his mind. Even now, he believed he had not wronged me in the slightest. He believed that as long as they hadn't taken that final step, they weren't cheating. And he, Simon Thorne, was worthy of me and our child. I pointed to the luggage nearby and said, "I can no longer live with you. You should move out first. Let's get the paperwork done as soon as possible. As for the property division, please have your lawyer discuss it with mine. Eleanor, do you not care about our relationship at all?" He looked at me in shock, asking in disbelief, "Simon Thorne, you'd better hope I still have some old feelings left. Otherwise, our parting won't be as amicable as you think." "What do you mean? After working for so many years, are you still so naive? You don't want to destroy everything you have now, do you? And that stinking mousy of yours, whatever you have, come at me, Eleanor Sterling. Don't you dare go crazy on her." See, his attempt to reconcile couldn't even involve her. How utterly devoted. I raised my hand and slapped him again. "Crazy. I've been crazy for a long time. What about it? If you're so concerned about her, why are you clinging to me and refusing to divorce? Is your dramatic personality acting up? Let me tell you, Simon Thorne, I've been very restrained. I deliberately sent Aria away. You'd better sign that divorce agreement soon. If you don't, I have plenty of ways to make you sign." He slumped dejectedly into a dining chair nearby. We faced each other, like two desperate beasts. In that moment, I saw myself in his eyes, looking so hideous. But it didn't matter anymore. I had already gone insane when I saw those chat logs. Simon Thorne ultimately did not sign the divorce agreement. He took his luggage and moved out first, saying we could talk once I was emotionally stable. Even though I told him my decision to divorce was a very calm one, he still didn't believe me. He asked if I wasn't considering Aria. I countered, "When you were doing all those things, did you think about your roles as a father and a husband?" I had considered many obstacles to divorce, but I never imagined that my own parents would be the first to side with Simon Thorne. The day after Simon Thorne moved out, my parents arrived. My father stood by, smoking. My mother spoke with a worried expression. "Eleanor, I understand most of what happened. In a marriage, it's inevitable for someone to occasionally stray. You can't be too rigid. After all, you have so many years of shared history. Besides, you're at this age now. If you really divorce Simon, what will you do?" My job was freelance. These past 2 days, aside from taking Aria to school, I mostly lay down. I constantly felt tired and exhausted. Even the arguments with Simon Thorne drained all my strength. Yet at this moment, from my own family, my blood relatives. I received not an ounce of comfort. Instead, what I saw was an advocate completely on Simon Thorne's side. What can I do? Did I not survive before I was with Simon Thorne? Mom, I'm an adult. I'm certain I can't live with him anymore. If you truly care about me, please don't give me any more emotional pressure. Eleanor Sterling. How old are you? Still so impulsive. You're almost 30. Can you not be so selfish? How old is Arya? Do you want her to not have a father? Can you really not tolerate even the slightest speck of dust in your eye? What does that have to do with my age? Am I almost 30? So I have no human rights. Is Simon Thorne going to die after the divorce? Why would Arya not have a father? If I pretend nothing happened and swallow my pride, will you give me an award? Fine. I can't win with you. You're too strong. Do whatever you want. If you can't even tolerate Simon Thorne, I'd like to see what kind of man can put up with your temperament. She slapped the table, stood up irritably, and was about to leave. I quickly walked to the door and opened it for them. Seeing my action, she became even angrier. What's wrong? Eleanor Sterling. Are you trying to kick your father and me out now? Are you so successful now? You're always fixated on Simon Thorne's problems. Have you ever thought about your own? With a temper as terrible as yours, have you considered that others find you annoying too? She continued to attack me. It was as if her arrival today wasn't to comfort a daughter whose marriage was broken, but rather to prove a mathematical equation. In her eyes, such a terrible daughter would inevitably have a failed marriage. I no longer knew how to describe the disappointment in my heart. That's right. Your rotten daughter. No one will want her later. But even if no one wants her, she's still getting divorced. Because such a rotten person doesn't need anyone to want her. She can want herself. As for that wonderful Simon Thorne, since you admire him so much, you can try to see if he's willing to be your son. And if he'll still acknowledge you too. I said, indifferent and sarcastic. Eleanor Sterling. What are you saying? If your father and I weren't doing this for your good, would we have rushed all the way here? In the midst of my screaming confrontation with my mother, my father finally finished his cigarette. He spoke up, like a mere spectator. I told you not to come. Your good daughter has too many ideas of her own. Who can control her? Does whether she lives well or poorly concern us? Even if she dies, it has nothing to do with us. Such sarcastic mockery. Such callous words. It was as if we weren't father and daughter, but sworn enemies. My emotions exploded. Once again, I was provoked into behaving like a madwoman. I smashed the vase and the stool in the living room, screaming at them to get out. It was as if they had come just to see me like this. My father's mood immediately soared. Is this how you treat your parents? No wonder someone like you got divorced. If you ever remarry, you'll probably get beaten to death by your husband. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. I suddenly calmed down. The crazier I got, the more triumphant he probably felt. I stopped screaming and calmly looked at him. Dad, whether I get beaten to death by a man is uncertain, but it's certain that when you're old, you'll be in my hands. Just keep treating me like this, and I'll slowly pay you back later. He was immediately silenced, but he still pretended to be fierce. Do you think you can threaten me? Let me tell you, I know the law. If you don't take care of me in my old age, you'll see if I sue or not. Go ahead and sue. I'll be waiting for your lawyer's letter. I retorted coldly. My mother then came out again to mediate. She wiped her tears and said, Eleanor, how can there be lasting grudges between father and daughter? Your father is just worried about you. Don't deliberately provoke him. I'm not saying this in anger. I'm telling you very seriously, since you both know in your hearts that I'm the one you'll rely on in the future. Can't you even prioritize my feelings and well-being? Or do you take me for granted, believing I won't care no matter how much you hurt me again? If parents don't cherish their children, how can they expect their children to take good care of them in old age? As I continued speaking, I actually became calmer and calmer. Whoever you forgive without limits will hurt you without limits. My mother's health suffered when she gave birth to me. She couldn't have any more children afterwards. So my father didn't particularly like me when I was a child. My mother also felt it was because of me that she didn't have a son, and that my father didn't like her. In my memory, my father was different from other fathers in the village. He refused to go out to work and farmed with great impatience. He said that without a son, everything was futile. So when I was little, I hardly ever bought new clothes, never had snacks, and was often hungry and cold. a particularly vivid memory from my childhood. Before the economy improved, I would often go to the fields hungry to dig for sweet potatoes, then wash the muddy potatoes roughly in a ditch and eat them raw. And whenever it rained, I would take a dustpan to block the gaps in the river ditch to catch fish and shrimp, a rare source of meat. The rest of my memories are filled with endless arguments at home. Sometimes my father would knock my mother to the ground. When I went to help her up, she would hug me and cry, saying if it weren't for me, she would have divorced him long ago. Then gradually, I would urge her to divorce him, telling her I wanted her to get a divorce. But she would slap me in a rage, asking me how I could be so wicked as to wish for my parents to divorce. Life started to get better when one day my mother discovered I was very good at studying. In the village primary school, I was almost always first in my class. Then I went to middle school in town. My grades consistently remained at the top, and almost every homeroom teacher told her that I would surely succeed in the future. It was these simple words that suddenly ignited her fighting spirit. If my father wouldn't go out to work, she would. She said she wanted to save up for my tuition. Later, my father barely farmed at all, and most of the living expenses my mother sent back were squandered by him. Fortunately, I was born in a good era. I could survive at school on various scholarships and subsidies. The biggest conflict between me and my so-called father erupted when I was in 8th grade. It was almost Lunar New Year, and my mother had finally managed to rush back from out of town. He took the meager earnings she'd made throughout the year and gambled them away, losing most of it, and then demanded more money from my mother. When I came back from evening self-study, my mother was being punched to the ground by him. Her nose was bleeding. She kept pulling at his pant leg, begging him not to leave. "Patrick, if you dare to go out tonight, I'm going to buy a bottle of pesticide and take Eleanor with me." How pathetic. Even being treated like this. The only way she could think of to gain this man's pity was by threatening to harm herself and me. But I wasn't like that. I wasn't afraid of this man. There was always someone in this world who could put him in his place. I strode into the room and locked the door. This house was rented by my mom. Our village house had long since collapsed. My mom said renting this house made it easier for me to study. But in reality, it was more about giving this man a place to live. After all, who would make their middle school daughter keep a close eye on her own father to prevent him from gambling too much? There was an old landline phone in the room. I directly called the police. The reasons for calling were domestic violence and gambling. As I expected, my mother didn't thank me. Instead, she tried to hit me again, saying, "Are you an animal? You're going to send your own father to jail on Lunar New Year's Eve. That's right. You just realized what good could come from two rotten people like you. And I'm telling you, the next time either of you lays a hand on anyone, I'll call the police again. Honestly, do you see any parents like you too? I might as well just send both of you in. It would be better than what I'm going through now." She raised her hand to hit me again. I glared at her. "What? You're too scared to hit that useless man. So you only dare to hit me." Her hand dropped, and she just kept lamenting her unfortunate life. I stopped listening to it all, and I stopped trying to change her. My mother had her own lessons to learn. I couldn't do them for her. She later spent some money and pulled many strings, finally getting her man released before Lunar New Year. On the day he got out, my father threatened to break my legs. I borrowed a classmate's phone, ready to call the police. My mother knelt on the ground, begging me to stop causing trouble, and repeatedly assured me that my father would never lay a hand on me again. Only then did I give up on calling the police. But from then on, my father called me a heartless beast. He said he could never rely on me in this life. I told him he was right. I told him that a man like him was born to have no descendants, and my survival was thanks to good government policies giving me a second life. I wasn't exaggerating. As a child, I nearly lost my life several times just for a bite to eat. When I went fishing, I almost got swept away by the current several times. I even encountered human traffickers while scavenging for scrap. If I hadn't matured so early, I might not have escaped. Being born into such a family, and managing to grow up safely, was a stroke of luck in itself. And while I was living so hard, my so-called father could lose money by the tens and hundreds at the gambling table. So in my heart, I never considered him a father. He was just a disgusting man from whom I couldn't escape a biological connection. Simon Thorne and I met when we were in high school. At that time, he was a fringe troublemaker who got in by paying a school selection fee. I was a hardworking, earnest student. Coincidentally, at the start of the school year, the teacher assigned us as desk partners. Simon Thorne's mother proactively approached me, hoping I could supervise her son's studies. I found it inexplicable. I politely told her I was just a regular classmate of her son's. Simon Thorne witnessed the scene and felt deeply embarrassed. He immediately shooed his mother away. Then he looked down at me and said, "Oh, good student Eleanor Sterling. You don't actually think being smart in studies makes you special, do you?" I rolled my eyes at him, not even wanting to engage. Seats would soon be changed based on grades, and I would quickly get rid of this rather unlikable desk partner. Simon Thorne had the face of a campus heartthrob, like a character from a manga. Sitting next to him was quite troublesome. Every day, people would pass him things, either food and drinks or love letters. After class, I'd immediately disappear. During class, people passing things several times was truly disruptive. Out of impatience, I stopped passing them along. People in school were too immature. A few girls thought I was jealous, that I liked Simon Thorne, and that's why I refused to pass the items. At first, they deliberately scribbled all over my textbooks. Dirty jokes about me also started circulating on online forums. Later, they dripped red ink on my stool. I grabbed the hair of the girl who was laughing the loudest and poured an entire bottle of red ink over her head. What followed was the classic scenario of school bullying. Only I was not like typical victims. One afternoon, I deliberately pretended to stay late in the classroom because of homework. The three girls punched and kicked me under the surveillance camera. Once I was sure the camera had a clear shot, I broke free and ran towards the first floor restroom. I had secretly turned off the water tap in that restroom earlier that afternoon. There was absolutely no way anyone would be there at that time. I led them, chasing me, into the restroom. And when they slipped on the dish soap I had placed earlier, I grabbed the nearby broom and dipped it in the Oreo from the toilet, and hit those annoying things stick by stick. By the time Simon Thorne arrived, panting, I was sitting on the floor, looking pitiful, telling the police how I had been violently attacked and forced to hide in the restroom. The surveillance footage clearly showed them hitting me. I stubbornly insisted on pressing charges against them. Adding to that the dirty jokes from the online forum, old and new grievances combined. Their identities were found directly via IP. The final outcome was that the three of them transferred schools and paid me a large sum of money. Afterwards, Simon Thorne asked me, "Were they really the only ones who bullied you?" "What? Are you going to be a detective?" I said sarcastically, as he stumbled for words. I continued to mock him. "Whatever you do has nothing to do with me. But as a person, shouldn't there be a basic rule? Don't cause trouble for others." To my surprise, Simon Thorne didn't choose to argue with me then. Instead, he said uncomfortably, "I'm sorry, Eleanor Sterling. I caused you a lot of trouble." I didn't actually care if he was sorry. It was just that he started to change a little. He would help me with classroom duties. I was the class representative for several subjects, and he would rush ahead of me to take my homework to the office, and then bring it back after the teacher had checked it. Even because of what happened with those three girls, they gathered a bunch of people from outside school to beat me up. Simon Thorne directly declared that anyone who dared to touch me would be going against him. I didn't care, even if they came. It would just mean more ways to make money. After all, I was really short on money back then. This insecurity ran through my entire youth. I was constantly worried that I wouldn't be able to continue my studies, that I couldn't hold on to this lifeline. Before this, I still found Simon Thorne annoying, because much of the trouble started because of him. Later, I even transferred directly to the elite class after passing an exam without saying goodbye to him. That was the first time he blocked me downstairs at the school building, asking forlornly, "Eleanor Sterling, do you really hate me?" "Yes." "Why?" "You're a lot of trouble." "Then I won't cause you trouble anymore. Can you try not to hate me?" I didn't answer. In my eyes at the time, everything there was just an insignificant passerby in my life. I would keep walking, until I reached the life I wanted. From then on, Simon Thorne seemed like a changed man. He no longer hung out with delinquents and studied as if transformed. He was even exceptionally placed into our class by the school administration in his second year of high school. When we met, he walked up to me again and said, Eleanor Sterling. You can't get rid of me. I offered no comment. Simon Thorne's mother was very grateful to me. She stubbornly believed that his newfound love for studying was all thanks to me. We became desk partners again. Thanks to Simon Thorne. I was very well taken care of in those last 6 months. Whenever his mother brought him things, there was always something for me. She said, "For your cool desk partner." A vivid memory from that period is how delicious his mother's chestnut chicken was. And when the weather was hot, the red bean ice he brought from home was truly refreshing. Another day, the power went out at noon, and the classroom was unbearably stuffy. Simon Thorne rushed over early from home, holding a small battery-operated fan. He also had a large palm-leaf fan. I had a very good nap that afternoon. When I opened my eyes and glimpsed the beads of sweat on his neck, my heart skipped a beat. The days that followed grew increasingly tense, with various competitions and exams coming one after another. As the time for university applications approached, Simon Thorne was very nervous. He insisted on seeing my choices before making his own. He repeatedly asked if I was planning to dump him once we went to university. Honestly, that was the first time in my life someone cared about me so much. The catalyst for us getting together happened when we were in university. At that time, I was working late at my part-time job and got caught in a heavy rain. To be safe, I didn't go back to school then. The result was that the bus returning to school overturned. It caused many casualties. My phone got wet in the rain and broke. Simon Thorne couldn't reach me at all. By the time my phone was repaired, it had been bombarded with calls from him and his family. I'll never forget that day. Simon Thorne held me, his eyes bloodshot. "Eleanor Sterling, you did this on purpose, didn't you? Are you trying to kill me with worry?" When I hugged him back, his whole body was shaking. He said he had never been so scared in his entire life. When we first got together, he said he knew from the first sight that I would take his surname, Thorne. Later, when we got married, he said, "See, you took my surname, Thorne." It was as if the Simon Thorne who loved me so much back then and the Simon Thorne of today were two different people. The moment I married him, I truly believed we would be happy. His family atmosphere was genuinely good. His parents loved each other, their affection as strong as ever for decades. We'd been married so long, and I'd never even seen them argue. At the time, I thought their present was our future. In the second month of my stalemate with Simon Thorne, as I lay half asleep, a hand suddenly reached around my waist. I screamed on the spot. The voice-activated bedside lamp instantly turned on. I saw Simon Thorne's guilty face. After just a moment's pause, he abruptly pressed me down. "Eleanor, no, don't leave me." He kissed me without any coherence. I raised my hand to slap him, but he tightly gripped my wrist. It wasn't until I kicked him downstairs that he finally calmed down. "Why? Wasn't it because of this before that you and I?" "Simon Thorne, can you stop pretending to be stupid?" I knew what he was referring to. Around the time I had just given birth to Arya, he barely touched me anymore. Compared to when we first got together, when he couldn't get enough of me, he was like a completely different person. At that time, I always thought it was my problem. I underwent scar repair. I exercised. I had beauty treatments. I became less and less like myself. Once, I even took a friend's advice and wore provocative lingerie. The thin, cool fabric hung on my body, and I felt exposed from every direction. I wondered if our lives had become too mundane, causing him to lose interest. But the moment I pulled back the covers, in the dim light, I actually saw a fleeting look of embarrassment on his face. My pose, the expression on my face, froze. Then, seeing his face, which looked as grim as if he were attending a funeral, I angrily pulled the blanket over me and turned my back to him. Nothing hurts a woman's self-esteem more than her husband's uninterested gaze. Even then, I was still reflecting, thinking that such things shouldn't be forced. I even worried if there was something wrong with his health, secretly inquiring about several reliable urologists. But when I carefully brought it up to him, his reaction was a furious outburst. He accused me of thinking about such things all day long. I still remember how my face instantly turned beet red then, my mind feeling completely blank. I was actually described by my own husband as a woman with insatiable desires. Later, I convinced myself that if it didn't happen, it didn't happen. A platonic relationship could work too, given all our years together. But the truth was, my husband was emotionally cheating, which is why he had no physical interest in me. Our daughter was woken by our argument. She carefully knocked on the door. "Mommy, what's wrong?" "Nothing. Mommy just had a bad dream about something dirty." Then, "Mommy, I'll sleep with you tonight. You won't be scared if I'm with you." My heart melted completely. The only worthwhile thing this marriage left me was my daughter. "No, you go back to your room first. Mommy's afraid you might see the bad dream too." I sent my daughter away and told Simon Thorne to get out immediately. Eleanor Sterling, do you have to be so ruthless? Do you want our daughter to have an unhappy childhood like yours? This thoroughly enraged me. Simon Thorne, you claim to love our daughter. But what about you and your little mousy? Do you want me to wait until our daughter grows up and then show her how her daddy and his little mousy met? Eleanor, why are you always so extreme? Can't a person ever make a mistake? He was still trying to twist logic. I just found the man in front of me utterly foreign. Do you want me to call the police? Eleanor, do as you please. I will not divorce you. No matter what. He left with those words. Finally, no matter what. Simon Thorne, I told you would sign. No matter what. In the following days, I simply went and sat downstairs at Lily Dawson's company. Simon Thorne immediately lost his composure. He rushed over, grabbed my arm, and tried to pull me away. Lily Dawson didn't even show her face. Eleanor Sterling, what more do you want me to say? Nothing happened between her and me. What do you want? I shook off his hand, crossed my arms, and coldly watched his anxious expression. Simon Thorne, do you not know what I want? If I don't agree, you can take all your anger out on me. I ignored him and walked straight to the elevator. Lily Dawson couldn't hold her composure and came down ahead of me. She said nothing, just ran off with red eyes, as if she had been greatly wronged. Eleanor Sterling, are you satisfied now? Simon Thorne questioned me, absolutely furious, until a staff member emerged from the elevator and said, "Ms. Sterling, I apologize for the wait. Our Mr. Sue values your work on promoting our product very much and is waiting for you in his office." I shrugged, patted Simon Thorne's shoulder, and said, "You're little mousy and you have very low psychological tolerance. We'll be seeing each other quite a lot in the future. What are you going to do about that?" After our discussion that afternoon, Simon Thorne's WeChat message came through again. "Eleanor, this really isn't Lily's fault. She's still a child. Please don't put so much psychological pressure on her. She really can't handle it." Psychological pressure. How could there be pressure if there's no guilt in her heart? Simon Thorne, my patience has limits. I haven't even done anything yet, and you're already this worried. If I really do something, don't you dare regret it. He stopped replying. It wasn't until I appeared at Lily Dawson's company multiple times that she couldn't hold back and confided in colleagues she was close to. After that, the entire company buzzed with the news. She couldn't stand her colleagues pointing fingers and whispering. One late night, she attempted suicide by slitting her wrists. At that moment, I was deep in slumber. Suddenly, I received a call from Simon Thorne. His tone was shockingly cold. "Eleanor Sterling, I should have known. How could you let her go? Are you satisfied now?" It took some effort to understand. So, Mousy had attempted suicide. Waking me up in the middle of the night, disturbing my peaceful sleep, was truly annoying. What did I do to her? Did I tell you to be hypocritical? Did I tell her to shamelessly seek understanding and support from others, only to incite public outrage? Eleanor Sterling, do you not have an ounce of compassion? All you want is a divorce. Right. I'll grant you that. The call was abruptly cut off. I drove to the hospital that very night to deliver the divorce agreement. Divorce truly is a soul-wrenching ordeal. Simon Thorne had been dragging his feet, and while I could have divorced him through legal means later, it would have been a real hassle. Now that he was worked up, I naturally had to seize the opportunity. When I reached the floor where Lily Dawson was hospitalized, Simon Thorne initially thought I was up to something again. He kicked over a nearby chair. "Damn it, are you ever going to be finished?" I didn't argue with him, simply shaking the divorce agreement in my hand calmly. He froze for a moment. "You really are something else. Who needs whom anyway?" He took the pen from my hand and quickly signed his name. One original, one copy. I carefully placed them in a folder and turned to leave, feeling light. After that day, I never saw Simon Thorne again. The next time I heard about him was months later, when Lily Dawson actively sought me out. She said Simon Thorne was in a bad state, drinking himself into unconsciousness all day. He had also quit his job. She hoped I would go see him, and again claimed that nothing had truly happened between them. She said I had misunderstood them from the very beginning. I felt like I had swallowed a fly. We were already divorced, and she was still bringing up these things. Naturally, I didn't mince words. Wow, Miss Dawson. How kind, how pure, how innocent you are. You never meddled in anyone else's relationship from the start. Never coveted a married man. Everyone just misunderstood such a simple and kind person like you. Eleanor Sterling. Do you have to be so sharp-tongued? Can you be so heartless towards someone you had years of feelings for? How could anyone ever like someone like you? Huh. What are you laughing at? I didn't answer. Instead, I asked, guess why I, despite finding you two so annoying, was still willing to see you today. Why? Because I've been a bit short on inspiration lately and need some material. Especially watching oddities like you two. It gives me the feeling of observing a bizarre human event. You. How petty. I'm actively helping her and Simon Thorne, and she won't even provide me with material. Just walked off. My life slowly returned to normal. My mother would sometimes send things to me and Arya, or subtly hint that I should find a new father for Arya while I was still young. I calmly told her not to do those things anymore. These dispensable concerns were no longer necessary. I had long passed the age of needing them. As for her worries about old age, until she enrolled in the Social Security I bought for her, I would provide living expenses on time, but nothing else. Honestly, if we were to talk about feelings, she didn't give me the emotional support when I needed it most. If we talk about benefits, even if she wanted to treat me as a tool for her retirement, she should at least invest in that tool first. The truth is, fortunately, I had foresight. I worked part-time during summer and winter breaks, and regularly, plus later writing. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had the money to complete my education. Most of the money she earned through hard work over the years was squandered by that father of mine. She questioned me, asking if I wasn't afraid my daughter would imitate how I treated her. I asked her, what did I do to her? Is reducing contact against natural law? She had no plans or direction for her life, to the extent that I ended up subsidizing almost her entire later life. Retirement, medical care. I saved money to handle all of it for her. As for Arya, I gave birth to her out of love, because I was sure I wanted a child. I was sure I wanted this child to thrive. She is a mirror of me. If she treats me poorly, then there's something wrong with my own reflection. My mother seemed to never understand how naturally children initially love their parents, how much I once depended on her, how devoted I was to her. But later, too many things forced me to learn to separate from her, for us to live our own lives. I didn't restrict Simon Thorne from seeing Arya. He was still Arya's father after the divorce. Of course, the premise was that he was a qualified father in my eyes. If he were like my own father, I would definitely impose restrictions, without other influencing factors. I was happy for Arya to receive an extra share of love. Time is the best medicine. Simon Thorne's life gradually returned to normal. He still didn't get together with his little Mousie, but they ate together, went shopping together, and the girl even went to his place every day to cook for him. Another time, Simon Thorne took Arya to the amusement park. After finishing work, I went to pick Arya up to take her home. He chatted with me for a bit, saying he was planning to start a business, car collateral leasing. Given his status as Arya's father, I kindly reminded him that the current economic climate wasn't ideal for starting a business. His face changed instantly, and he accused me. Eleanor, do you know, is it only my fault that our relationship turned out this way? You never encouraged me. You always thought of the worst case scenario. I couldn't listen anymore. I immediately cut him off. Simon Thorne, how many more times do I have to tell you? Apart from being Arya's parents, we have no other relationship. Whether you start a business or not, my agreement or disagreement doesn't matter. I also hope that in the future, our meetings will only involve Arya and nothing else. Simon Thorne had witnessed Eleanor Sterling's coldness before, but it was only when that coldness was directed at him that he found it so sharp. He suddenly remembered the chocolate ice cream cake she had brought the day she exposed him. When she left, The cake was a melted mess. He scooped some up with a spoon and tasted it, finding it utterly bitter. He clearly remembered that bakery. He'd eaten from it for years. It was the best ice cream cake shop within 10 miles. He had held onto a sliver of hope, especially when Eleanor Sterling allowed him to see Arya. He even joyfully thought this was the last bit of leeway she was giving him. But her subsequent interactions and words once again sent him back to square one. He wondered what exactly Eleanor Sterling was trying to pull. She thought he was incompetent, so he insisted on starting a business to prove her wrong. And so, he took his parents' life savings and plunged headfirst into the entrepreneurial world. After 6 consecutive months of bad debts, he actually started to panic. But facing Lily Dawson's expectant eyes, she told him he could do it. That in her heart, there was nothing he couldn't achieve. He mustered his courage again and continued to pour money into it, until he lost everything. The bad debts outside grew more and more. Later, he panicked and lost his mind. Using improper methods with friends when collecting debts, he was used as a typical example of organized crime and sentenced to 10 years. He felt his vision go black. His parents, past 50, were still running around trying to help him. Eleanor Sterling brought Arya to see him one last time. She was still the same, facing his misfortune as calmly as if he were a stranger. She no longer, as before, considered everything for him, strategized for him. He remembered when they had just graduated. She accompanied him to company interviews, meticulously discussing and revising his resume. At that time, she cared about his gains and losses as much as her own. Even more so after they got married. She would actively help him manage colleague relationships, inviting the wives of key personnel to dinner or on trips. Later, every time his career advanced, she was by his side. They were originally the happiest family, but now everything was gone. In that moment, he suddenly realized that they had truly become 2 parallel lines. If it weren't for Arya, he might not even be able to see her. He should have known all along. She was always so resolute. He had spent so many years to make her accept him, and ultimately, it was he who made her give up on him. He wondered if the 17-year-old Simon Thorne would resent the 30-year-old Simon Thorne for losing Eleanor Sterling so easily. In the days that followed, Simon Thorne never saw Eleanor Sterling again. He only heard bits and pieces about her from his parents. She later started a relationship and got married. Her husband was a biracial man, several years younger than her. Arya grew up very well, generous, bright, and confident. When she wasn't in school, she traveled the world with Eleanor Sterling and her husband. To outsiders, they were a happy family of 3, and all of this was originally his. He only saw Lily Dawson one last time, just before he was about to be released from prison. Lily Dawson suddenly came to see him, telling him it was all his fault for ruining her life. He listened with a blank expression as she slowly finished her complaints. Only then did he learn that years after Lily Dawson got married, her husband discovered their past affair. They were now in the midst of a divorce. It seemed that every cause a person set in motion, even if the effect wasn't immediately visible, would eventually manifest in their later life. At that moment, he could no longer lie to himself about how shameless he had been then, trying to push all the blame onto Eleanor Sterling. Fortunately, Eleanor Sterling didn't fall for any of it. She was an extremely frank person. When problems arose in their marriage, she didn't even give him time to escape. She directly and openly sought a resolution from him. But the more she did this, the more afraid he became. He feared her discovery, and yet he also feared her not discovering. Every day, he felt like he was walking on a tightrope, until Eleanor Sterling tore down the facade, and he could no longer escape. And then, watching her turn away resolutely, after his release from prison, he wanted to see her, but couldn't even find a reason. Only when he went to see Arya did he catch a distant glimpse of her. She was leaning on the tall man's shoulder, smiling brilliantly. Eleanor Sterling truly was someone who would always move forward.